And earlier this year, I talked to Robert Morris. He's a PhD at the MIT Media Lab. He was telling us about several projects he was working on. One was a social network called Koko that would reduce stress and help people connect with each other to solve their problems, or maybe not solve them, but at least understand them better. The idea was that crowdsourcing therapy would be cheaper, it would avoid the stigma that still comes with therapy, and it might be even more effective. The app Koko launched yesterday, and Robert Morris is back to talk to us about it. Hi, Robert.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. Congratulations on the app. Tell us a little bit about how Koko works.
Okay, so Koko is a social app. It's designed really primarily to promote resilience in the face of stress. And it has a lot of the trappings of a traditional social app. So just like a traditional app, you can post content to the network, you can reply to other people on the network, you can browse content. But the crucial distinction is that it's not just an open-ended forum where you can post whatever you want and respond however you want. Rather, the app is designed at many different levels to help reinforce evidence-based techniques to manage stress and well-being. These are techniques that have been used in gold standard psychotherapies for many, many decades. And it's really a very simple process of helping people find alternative interpretations of negative situations. So a quick example could be, I just got fired, I go on Koko, I post that I lost my job, and my negative interpretation in the heat of the moment is that I'm a terrible employee and I'll never work again. So I imagine all of us have had these kinds of self-defeating thoughts at one time or another about small things, large things. And one of the most effective ways to manage stress is to learn how to think flexibly about stressful situations and try to find alternative interpretations that might be a little bit more optimistic, more realistic. It's very hard to do this yourself when you're stressed. So the idea of this app is you sort of crowdsource this mental computation to other people who have a different perspective. And they come on and they help remind you of things about your situation you may not be able to recall in the moment. So for example, if you did get fired, maybe they'll prompt you to think about how you might not have liked that job, how maybe others alongside you also got laid off. So it's not just a reflection of your skills. Maybe you didn't like your boss. Maybe you have a chance to pursue something else. Maybe you have some time off. All these things that are really just reasonable interpretations of stress, but that kind of disappear the moment we are faced with stressful events. So that's one side of it. You can post and get these wonderful responses, again, that are structured by this crowd of people. These aren't therapists. These are just users like you coming on. The other side is, and this is where it gets really interesting, is just like another network, you can respond to other people. And what we find is that the people who compose these responses, the technical term is a reappraisal. The people who compose these reappraisals, these ways to rethink stressful situations again and again for others, actually get the most benefit from the app. So we've evaluated it in a randomized controlled trial, and we've been doing some subsequent research with institutions like Columbia, Northwestern, and UPenn. And one of the beautiful things we're finding about our network is that it appears that the people who help most often are actually the ones who gain the most benefit. So they're the ones who are flexing this mental muscle over and over again to help others. And in doing so, they're learning this, again, evidence-based technique that they can apply to themselves to help them manage stress in their daily life.
This sounds like the opposite of Instagram, where people go to Instagram to brag about like the wonderful, best things that are happening in their life. This would be the social network where you would go and say the worst things or the most stressful things or the most annoying things happening. But I'm curious, so this is completely anonymous. No one would know it was me in particular that was having this horrible thing happening to me. And with a lot of these networks around anonymity, you tend to encounter kind of people with ill intent or people who say horrible things. How are you going to ensure that this is like a very positive network where people are, trying to lift people's spirits and help them like reassess their problems in their lives as opposed to, saying very nasty things?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something that I've been working on personally ever since this project started. It started as a research project about 4 years ago at MIT. And we worked really hard with the Institutional Review Board to put some safeguards in at that time. And we've now sort of blossomed it so that there's a really sophisticated moderation system that we have in place. So every response gets read, every post gets read. We have algorithms that look for words that might indicate malicious behavior. We have members of the community helping out. It's really structured to be as warm and welcoming as possible. And I genuinely believe there are ways to really powerfully safeguard your community against these kinds of behaviors if that's in your intention. So we have a lot of mechanisms to do that, and we're constantly reevaluating them as we grow and trying new things. But that's a huge priority for us because, yes, anonymity does sort of strip away some of the inhibitions that people might otherwise have. And so we work very hard to keep it safe and welcoming.
So you're a researcher. You said that you've already looked at this data and seen that it shows one thing, that people get more out of helping than being helped. What else are you planning to do with all the data that you're collecting, and anonymously, I assume, collecting from the app?
So yeah, right. So we can collect some of the data and look at behaviors. So we can start to learn things like what types of responses match which problems best. And we can use that data to feed back into the app to enhance the user experience and maybe give respondents more prompts and coaching to deliver the most effective response they can. We can match responses to different personality types. In addition to that, we are constantly assessing the efficacy of this. We want to make sure that as we redesign it, that we continue to maintain a tradition of evaluating the app. So we're talking with several universities and trying to come up with some data sharing agreements. This would have to involve some opt-in by our users who are willing to at least do some assessments for us. So traditional psychological assessments of well-being, measures of anxiety, depression, things like that. And what we would do is we would measure those at one instance and treat that as a baseline. And then we would have those users continue on the app, and then we would do a post-assessment. And the idea is that you would see significant changes in these outcomes over time. So there are a lot of ways to do that, and we're constantly trying to find ways to capture these assessments that still preserve a good user experience. We really hate the idea of having people fill out surveys. So we're looking at different ways to collect some data that might act as proxies to these types of assessments. But yeah, a lot of data on the efficacy is something we're trying to keep in our pipeline.
I'm curious how many users the app has right now, and then just kind of like who the intended user is. Somebody with, kind of very, mild or moderate mental health problems, or like at what point does it reach their problems are too serious and they should be escalated to a different kind of mental health service?
Yeah, those are great questions. So let me answer the latter one first, and if I forget the former, remind me. But to your question about who this is for, so we cater to anyone suffering from everyday stress. If you've ever had a negative thought in your head, if you're human, basically, you could probably stand to use this app. We do have people who have mild to moderate symptoms of anxiety and depression, especially when we first started. And what we do is if anyone posts something that suggests they're in a crisis, and again, we have moderators reading all these things, we then usher them to other crisis services. So we're not a crisis app by any means. We're more of a skill-building app and an app that provides emotional support and stress reduction in the moment for kind of those day-to-day bumps in the road. But we've found it pretty helpful for individuals who do suffer from all sorts of conditions ranging from anxiety to depression. But we're really trying to cater to anyone who's experiencing stress. And we're finding that people, with all types of concerns can benefit from the app. Your other question was about how many people. So We started with a small beta community of about 3,000, and we were working with them for 10 months to refine the app and do a lot of really collaborative design work with them. So we had a forum in the app and ways for our users to chat with us, and we'd run little experiments with them. And it was a really wonderful experience to design the app collaboratively with these users. We just launched publicly yesterday morning. And so our activity's gone up about 100x over the last day or so. So I'm not exactly sure what our numbers are now, but it's a very different scale that we kind of bumped up to just recently.
So is the app free?
Yes.
And is it ad supported, or how does it work right now?
Yeah, we really don't want to do any ad support. So our approach is to really just focus on making a really wonderful product that people value and that helps people. And if we can do that, we can look into ways to generate revenue a bit later. And we do have some ideas we're exploring, but we don't want things like ads that may run contrary to the interests of our users.